Tonight's episode of CanoeHound's Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. Algonquin Outfitters, with 5 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Salis Marine, keeping you safe on the water since 1999. Ostrom Outdoors, custom fit canoe packs and barrel harnesses. And Novacraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. Well, happy Tuesday evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of CanoeHound's Outdoor Adventure Show, a show that's going to bring you a lot closer to the great outdoors. My name is Dennis, also known as CanoeHound, and if this is your first time tuning into the show, thank you very much for coming in and joining us. Hopefully, you'll enjoy the next couple of hours that we have set out for you here. We got a really great guest on tonight, a really fun guy, not to be confused with a mushroom, but he is a fun guy, okay? And we'll bring him onto the show here in a few short moments. I see we got a good following already in the chat, so thanks everybody for popping in. You know what? We always start with a little bit of news and announcements. And first thing I'd like to start with, last week I brought up a little bit of sad news there that a good YouTube friend of mine had passed away. And the outreach from so many of you was so kind. And you know what? As much as I mourn the losing of Sty North, his family misses him even more. So I just wanted to thank everybody for the outpouring of condolences regarding Sty. And you know what? It still chokes me up. You guys are all the best. You're all the best. So thank you very much for that. To your family or to Sty's family, if anybody happens to be seeing this at a later point, because right now they're still mourning and services are to be coming. God bless you guys. My heart goes out to you. Anyways, if you missed last week's show, we had a great time. We had a contestant from Alone Season 10, Wyatt Black. And I won't do any spoiler alerts because we had enough of that in last week's show. But if you haven't seen season 10 of Alone on the History Channel, now's a great time to watch it, man, because you can get all the episodes in if you do some live streaming. And you won't be disappointed. It was a really good season. And you know what? Wyatt Black did not disappoint as a guest last week. We shared all kinds of stories. He told us things that we didn't even get to see on Alone because they have their own storylines that they like to follow. But Wyatt really was a good time talking with him, man. He's a funny guy. He had some great stories. And if you did miss the episode, if you look down here below in the description there, I got a few links in there, one of which is to the past episodes playlist of CanoeHound's Outdoor Adventure Show, where you can catch all 5 seasons, well, 4 seasons and a bit anyways, of CanoeHound's Outdoor Adventure Show, including last week's show with Wyatt. So by all means, feel free to check that out. If you are a little bored and you got some time to kill, go ahead and give it a watch. Just wanted to say next week, if you're a camper and, you know, you always wonder how to properly pack or store your gear. Well, join us next week. We're going to have a few panelists on here. We're going to be giving some fine tips as to how to store your camping gear, your summer camping gear for the wintertime. A lot of it you might cross over to winter camping or late fall activities and stuff like that. But there are proper ways to store some of the gear that you have. And you know what? We're going to be sharing a lot of tips on that. So next Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock, we will be doing a show on that. So be sure to mark your calendars and tune on in for that. This weekend going to be kind of a busy weekend for this guy. I'm going to be in Barrie, Ontario. If anybody is in the Barrie, Ontario area, or, you know, within an hour or hour and a half's drive, the first real outdoor show is going to be happening for this, like, you know, Southern Ontario region type of thing. The Great Canadian Outdoor Show is going to be at the Bradford Greenhouses in Barrie, and I will be there both on Saturday and part of Sunday with the guys from Kid Products. It's a sort of a hunting and fishing show with all kinds of activities. There's going to be all kinds of presenters there. I believe the canoe collector himself is actually going to be doing a presentation there as well. So you might want to pop on down. Come on over to the Kid Products booth and say hi. And we'll get you a CanoeHound Adventures or a CanoeHound's Outdoor Adventure Show decal for your efforts. So make sure you pop on out to see us. Love to see you out there. Let's see here. as we always do every week, we celebrate our channel members. And you know what? We only had, I think it was one channel member this week. And let me just double check this. No, you know what? Nobody's celebrating a milestone, but you know what? Going across the bottom of the screen are all our channel members who have been supporting the channel, both new and long term. Thank you very much to all of you for what you do for the channel. It's greatly appreciated. And to get a little bit of oh, I got the wrong ticker going across. Let's try this one here. This is the one that shows all of our channel members, not the ones that celebrated milestones last week, but these are all the people that I'd like to thank very much for your contributions. And also, I wanted to thank those who bought me a coffee for this week's show. We got Juanita once again, and Jay and Sherry from Beauty of the Backcountry. Thanks very much for your coffee, and it's time. Let's take a dip. There is actually coffee in that, people, believe it or not. Yes, it is. Okay, and you know what? A couple of birthday wishes while the ticker goes across the bottom there. Let's see here. We've got subscriber Peter Dinsmore is celebrating a birthday. And then happy anniversary to adventurers Christina and Vince Niegarth. I've known them for a couple of years now, and they're regulars on in the chat over there, as well as we see them at shows all the time. But happy anniversary to you two. That's awesome. They do all kinds of adventures together, and they're really exploring the outdoors. So that's always a good thing. And then, of course, last week, I think it was, I wished my wife a happy birthday. Well, you know what? One of the other women in my life, my mom. My mom is celebrating a birthday this coming Sunday. So, Mom, if you happen to be tuning in, which she does from time to time, happy birthday to you. I love you, and we'll be talking to you very soon. I'll see you very soon. Let's see here. Well, I always also mention to everybody that if you have anything that you would like to see on the show, I love it when you help out and let me know the content that you want to see on the show. This is the key email right here, canoehound@gmail.com. You can reach me by that email at any time. I get back to all my emails. So if you have anything you'd like to see on the show, or perhaps you have a well wish or happy birthday wish or something along that lines that you'd like me to announce here on the show, please do so. Just send it over here and we'll make it happen. We'll make it happen one way or another. We'll make it happen for you. And yeah, that's probably about that. So as usual, tonight's show is going to be a very interactive show. And you know what? If you have any questions for myself or tonight's guest, put the word question before your question and get it in the chat. I will mark it, and chances are it will all be read, or the questions will be brought up or asked after the 8 o'clock break. So don't be shy. And we will also be inviting guests up. We'll get the link in there a little later on. If you have a question for myself or my guest, you know what? He's actually told me that he's excited to be taking some questions and getting to meet some of the viewers and listeners out there. So by all means, don't be shy. Join us on panel. It's just a camera. You know, picture us in our underwear, because somehow with his Instagram post today, I think he pictured that for some reason. But anyways, without further ado, let's get on to tonight's show, tonight's guest. Let me get myself on the right page. Tonight's guest is a no-holds-barred kind of guy, and when it comes to the Ontario wilderness and green space, he's a creator and host of Wild Ontario News on Instagram and a host of Wild Ontario Podcast, and I believe that's also broadcast right here on YouTube. Please welcome to the live stream. We got James Alofs. How you doing?
Hello, Dennis. You're fully clothed, good sir.
Well, you know what? I haven't taken my Viagra yet, I guess. I don't know if everybody happened to see James' post for today's show on Instagram, but if you haven't seen it, you got to get on there. This guy's got quite the sense of humor, and it's great. We're gonna have a good time tonight. I think this is gonna be a good show.
Absolutely, and I brought my axe. I find that if I have an axe in my hand, my testosterone levels are just about 30% higher, so it's critical to have this. I even walk around the street sometimes with this.
Oh yeah, I bet that goes over really well. You're in the Toronto area, are you not?
Yes, sir. Yeah, right in downtown Toronto. Worst place in the world if you're an outdoorsman. But not for long, sir. I'm moving into the country, so not for long.
Well, first off, if you're carrying an axe in Toronto, good for you, because you probably need it. Toronto's like a zombie apocalypse down there anymore. You go down there, construction and all the crap that's going on down there. Yeah, you need protection, right?
Seriously,
Yeah.
man. Seriously. Yeah. Where are you located again?
I live down near Welland, Ontario. So I'm even farther from the north than you are, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There's a lot of steel stuff in Welland, is there not? Is there some steel activity going on there?
Most of that's all disappearing from this area. You got all the stuff in Hamilton area, but yeah, they got some our area. They got some big construction thing going on. I think they're going to be mining. I think cobalt actually, and they're going to be using that to produce batteries right in Welland for for the EV market. So not
Wow.
who knows. You should do some research on that, sir. You
Yeah,
really
yeah,
should.
for
Yeah.
sure. For sure.
Yeah. So you're a Toronto boy, so you're a city boy, but I believe you bought 40 acres up north. Tell us a bit about that. What your plans are for buying 40 acres.
Yeah, and I lived in China for 7 years, and I came back in 2019 back here to Toronto, and I started watching some of the Ontario outdoor creators, like Joe Robinet and Xander Budnick and the Baird brothers and all those guys, and started to get into the outdoors scene. And basically, it's flourished to a point where I'm like, why am I living in the city? Every time I come back to the city, I'm getting depression and PTSD. So I decided to go take the leap and actually buy some land. So that's what I'm gonna go do here. I'm a huge fan of Sean James, My Self Reliance.
Yeah.
Another Ontario, great Ontario outdoors creator and what he's done. So I just want to go live that wild life, man. See what happens. Maybe I love it. Maybe I hate it. I think the only way to really know is to go do it. Right. So that's
Yeah.
the plan. But yeah, it's in climate zone 4. So, it's still got lots of hardwoods. If people are aware of the climate zones, there's still maple trees and oak trees and all those kind of good hardwoods that I love. But it's a really interesting area. There's a lot of wild critters there. A neighbor has even seen a wolverine twice. So it's an interesting spot. It's a very interesting spot.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And when's all this going to be taking place? Are you in the process of doing it now? I know you got the property, but have you started?
Yeah. I'm looking at building something with one of my neighbors, and that might even happen in the next few weeks. So I may be launching a YouTube channel for that or a separate. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it on YouTube or I'm going to do it 100% short form video content, like entirely on TikTok or Instagram. So I'm kind of deciding there, but it could be in the next few weeks, my friend. I'm itching to get up there for
Cool.
sure. It is kind of a tough time of the year, like being the fall heading into winter, but it makes it more dramatic, right?
Well, you know what? You don't have to worry about the bugs this time of year. So you go have at it, man. You probably
Yeah,
have snow up there within a week's time, though. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure, for sure. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
if you're following a guy like Sean James, he certainly makes it look easy, the way he does his stuff. And yeah, I've been following Sean James ever since he started his other channel. I found it very interesting too, and live vicariously through him because all of us guys, we all want to be that guy, right? And yeah, he does a great job, man. Really love to have him on the show one day to talk about or try to talk about things that he hasn't already talked about on his channel because he puts it all out there, right? Yeah.
He certainly does, man. He certainly does. And what's interesting about this space, just like I'd say to me in my mind, there's the homesteaders and then there's like the campers and the bushcrafters. They seem to
Yeah.
be two kind of different categories to me. And what's interesting is, a lot of the guys I just mentioned, including in the homesteading space with Sean James, there's also people like Jona Yinton out in Sweden doing a similar kind of homesteading thing, although she's doing it with all kind of conventionally built houses. But there's such an array of styles, right? Like I have no interest in going out and trying to do exactly what Sean James is doing because that's already been done. You know what I mean?
Right.
I can't out Sean James. So I'm going to try to do something, unique and different. Try to do something that hasn't been done yet. So I think that's what everybody tries to do.
Yeah. Well, the whole short form thing, it seems like a lot of this YouTube stuff is starting to trend towards that. And it plays right into what you do with your Wild Ontario News. Just short little snippets that catch attention. And you've shown exponential growth with your Instagram channel or feed that I know, like, I think I found you really early on in the day because I'm always looking for this type of stuff, right? But your numbers have really shot up through the format that you're doing.
Yeah, it was really random, man. Like I opened this, channel maybe a year ago and just did a few posts on it. Then back in July this year, I sent this post about mountain lions being back in Ontario. and that got like 600,000 views. I'm like, wait a minute, maybe there's some fuckers out there other than myself that actually care about this stuff. So in July, I just started posting, at least once a day, and we've grown, from a few hundred now on Instagram. I think I've got 23,000. So there's a big appetite, and like 95% of the audience, you can see these stats, are people in Ontario. I think there's just a big quench. There's a big thirst for information about, wildlife, health, and wilderness here in Ontario. It's a huge province. It's a huge chunk of planet Earth, right? Like Ontario is bigger than the country of France. It's about the same size as Texas and Montana combined. I think there's there's a lack of appreciation for how wonderful Ontario is. And I think this content that I'm making, has kind of struck a chord, because there's a lot of interest out there that's not being served, essentially.
Sure. So before we get into a bit more about why you're doing it, which you kind of explained a bit now, but I know there's a little more behind it. But I have to start with a really philosophical question, a really serious question. And that is, if you had to be eaten alive, asshole first, by a predatory animal in Ontario, what animal would you choose and why? You had to know that was coming back at you sometime, right?
When I heard the philosophical part, you know what, man? I'm going to go, because this is the question I asked at the beginning of every podcast, right? And it's really funny because sometimes I get some really straight-laced folks on there, and they're kind of like, it kind of ruffles their feathers, right? But you know what? I'm going to have to go really boring and old school, Dennis, but classic blue chip answer here. I would like to get eaten alive, asshole first, by a pack of gray wolves. I mean, I'm shocked. I've done, I think, 13 episodes of my podcast now that I've recorded. I haven't had a single person say the gray wolf. I'm like, guy, I've had all these weird answers. Like, I'd like to get eaten alive, asshole first, by a fox. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, that would be a horror. Like, anyways, lots of crazy answers, but I just like an old school blue chip, wolf pack. I think that would be a great way it would be relatively quick. It'd be a badass story for your cousins, right? At family reunions and whatnot. So I think that'd be a solid one. What about you, Dennis? If you had to get eaten alive, asshole first, by an animal,
you got to have me on your podcast to ask me that question, dude. This is my show.
Fair enough. Fair enough, Dennis.
No, great answer. Hey, has anybody ever asked you that back, though?
No, because when I heard you talk about philosophical question, I just knew, man. I already started laughing. That was hilarious. That was hilarious.
So back to the reason why you started Wild Ontario News, which for anybody in the chat who hasn't followed James yet, make sure you do follow him on Instagram. It's really cool. He touches on all different types of topics of the backcountry and the animals and stuff like that. But he also throws a pounding to Doug Ford, who, with all this green space stuff, that the whole debacle that's been going on with that. And you're not wrong in what you're touching on there. So I commend you on that. But how did you come up with the idea of Wild Ontario News? Do you have what's your background? Do you have a background in this type of thing, or?
By training, I'm actually a stripper. So I don't have any direct, linkage to that. But I guess you could say, I did my undergrad in geography, which I guess is kind of a generalized environmental training, right? It's not any specific kind of, wildlife biology or anything, but you kind of touch on a lot of different buckets. So this is just my personal interest. Like, the things I'm most obsessed about is human health, like wildlife, and then also wilderness, because I think human health and wildlife health are both also heavily dependent on wilderness, right? Like the environment. To me, they're all interlinked. So I've always been interested in this, and I've just started sharing it. And it happens to be that, folks are also interested in it as well. I guess you could maybe even kind of, it might be a kind of Discovery Channel light, maybe mishmash of different elements. But yeah, I guess it's probably my geography background, and then also growing up as a fisherman, to be honest. Both my parents were fishermen, and getting out fishing, man, there's nothing that can help you get obsessed with nature, I think, than hunting, fishing, and gathering. I think it really, really helps to get you connected to your local landscape. I don't know if you had a similar experience yourself in terms of, your interest in this stuff, but it definitely helped for me.
Yeah, my interest just grew through, a love for the outdoors. Started as a Boy Scout that I wasn't very good at when I was a kid, but yeah, getting out there and experiencing the wilderness at about 21 years old or something with a buddy. It was really cool to get out there. And it's like, even though we had the shittiest trip ever, we did it again the next year, right? Same trip. And we overcame a bunch of things and things progressed. And before you knew it there, like, now I'm doing bigger trips and longer time and more often. And, my gear collection is growing way too big for my wife's liking. And, it is what it is, right?
That's hilarious, man. Yeah. Like every camping trip, backcountry camping trip that I've done, I only really started in 2019 when I got back from China. The toughest ones are the most memorable, and I find the tougher it is, and the more suffering there is, as soon as I get back to my car, the more I can't wait to get back out there again. I don't know if that kind of, I guess, equation is also true for you, but it's right.
It's the drive home that gets me. The drive home, and I'm already thinking, man, I gotta. What am I gonna do for the next trip, or what's the next outing gonna be? Right? It starts the minute I come off the water. For me, it's
absolutely. It's this weird, like the more the suffering, the more you want it. Maybe we're sadists, or what do they call them, masochists? Maybe we're just masochists, Dennis. We like to be punished by mommy nature.
I don't think it's punishment. I think having to go to work every day is punishment.
Yeah.
Like punishment, right?
Yeah, that's true. Well, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. So let's, I love some of the content that you have on your channel, and let's go over a few of the things. And I'd like to know how you find, first off, some of the special topics that you talk about. Like the first one we'll start with is a recent bear attack, where the bear is following a guy and it's up the tree and back down and it's coming at him and up the next tree and stuff like that before he finally sprayed him with your advice, pepper spray.
Bear spray.
Yeah. Yep.
I have a canister on me at all times.
Another Toronto thing, right?
Toronto, man. That's right. All the crazy fuckers in Toronto, you got to have bear spray, my friend. Absolutely. Yeah. That guy was a wild story. I mean, I just kind of follow all these different accounts, and I'm just kind of DJ. I feel like I'm a DJ. Like stuff that I see that's related to Ontario in some way, I just suck it in. And some of the stuff, it's from my own life and experience. Some stuff I actually get sent to me via DM. I get a lot of people sending me videos and trail cam photos and that kind of stuff. But a lot of this, I just follow a bunch of these accounts, especially on Twitter. Twitter is a big source, for getting this kind of stuff. But that fellow, a lot of times the people who posted the original photo or video will actually reach out to me. Like that crazy bear video, which got 1.7 million views on my Instagram. I did an edit of the original because it was 6 minutes long. It was way too long. It was very interesting, but I edited it down to 60 seconds just with the key points. And that fellow reached out to me, and we ended up doing a podcast and basically finding out that 10 minutes of the story was actually not even in the footage, like the first 10 minutes of the experience. So, because there was a lot of people shitting all over him in the comments saying, what are you doing? Like, it sounds like you want to make love to this bear. You're saying all these kind words. Like, why aren't you getting big and angry? And, that kind of, energy with him. And basically the guy had been trying that like aggressive energy with the bear for like 7 or 8 minutes before he started filming, and it wasn't working. If anything, it was backfiring. So he changed his demeanor. And then eventually, he did spray the bear. But it's interesting, man. It's interesting.
Yeah, people don't know until it actually happens to them. A good friend of mine there, maybe in the chat tonight, we've done a couple of bear episodes here on CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show, and it's more about prevention or what to do if it happens. And you know what? Although they say, make yourself big and scary back to them, it doesn't always work. You don't know how to handle the situation until the situation actually handles you, right? So, yeah, it's one of those things. But you're a great advocate of exactly that, carrying bear spray when you're into the backcountry.
Absolutely, Dennis. Yeah, I can't believe my whole point. With a lot of the content I try to share around bears and bear safety is you should be carrying it, because there's a lot of folks out there who get into the argument of bear spray versus firearms. But here in Ontario, it's just like, man, even in Greater Canada, to me, it's like maybe 5% of the population has a gun license. And again, you can't carry a handgun into the woods here in Canada unless you're like a trapper or like, a mineral speculator. It's very difficult to do that. So who's going to carry an 8-pound shotgun while they're carrying their 50-pound tripping pack on their back, right? It's like not a lot of folks are going to do that. Oh, does he do that? Okay. Well, yeah. I
Or
mean, I
Joe
guess
Robinette. I just see Joe Robinette. No, I know what you're saying though. Yeah, the gun laws here in Ontario would totally deter against that there, and your only line of defense is bear spray, right?
yeah, and the number of people I know, especially here in Toronto, who will go backcountry camping or even hiking, up on Crown Land and stuff, and they don't bring anything. Like they don't even have a knife. And to me, I guess I'm trying to reach out that 95% of people out there who just aren't taking anything and say like, hey guys, not really, there's not really a high probability. There's about like 1.3 people, killed per year by black bears in North America. So your chances aren't high, but when you're in bear country, and tromping around, it could happen. So you don't want to be, one of those statistics, right? So that's what I'm trying to, get out
Yeah,
there. And then too, if someone does get attacked by a bear, obviously it's a tragic loss of human life, but I think it also gives bears a very bad reputation. And there's definitely a subgroup of folks out there who are of the opinion it's a small but vocal group who just want an excuse to kill a predatory animal any chance they get. I have run
mhm.
into folks like that. They're like mountain lion, wolf, bear. I'm gonna poach it. I'm gonna shoot it. I don't think that they're good for anything, which I think is a very archaic perspective. But you
Yeah,
don't want to give that community more excuses to go out and poach these predatory animals.
sure. And I'm as guilty as the next guy, right? I don't carry bear spray, and I think it's because I've become very complacent in the back country. But my mindset is being changed ever since my buddy Daniel was like he had a bear incident last year on the French, and ever since then it's now in the back of my mind. So this year when I was on my big canoe trips and a couple of other smaller trips, my senses were a little more keen, but I haven't had the opportunity to pick up bear spray yet, right? Because it's not a common thing that you could just buy anywhere. You have to actually go to an outdoor store and stuff like that, and it's under the counter. But so they make it difficult to pick the stuff up, I guess, for good reason, because the stuff is pretty dangerous in its own right. But yeah, and talking about the bear thing, you had another one that you just posted the other day about this guy way down south or something that he had his bottom jaw ripped off by a grizzly bear, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. Absolutely. That's pretty
Yeah.
brutal. I mean, that would definitely ruin your whole day. And that was a guy, with a gun. He was a hunter out there. It's interesting. I always bring up the point that the Meat Eater crew, Steve Ranella and that clan, they always talk about, we have guns in the woods, but we like to bring bear spray too. They had that encounter with the grizzly right on, I think it was a Fognac Island. They had a bear come into their campsite, literally just brawling people and people flying everywhere. If they started shooting with their bolt action rifles, man, they would end up, shooting somebody else in their crew. So, bear spray is good. Now, I know that there was that couple that was just killed in Banff. I think it was Banff, either Banff or Jasper, by a grizzly. And they did find a bear spray canister that was fully deployed on the site. But I would say, listen, we don't know how they deployed it. They might have gone out there with a half a canister, and like a canister like this. I think this is only about 7 or 8 seconds worth of spray, right? So if you deploy this and you deploy it incorrectly or out of range of the bear, and then you got nothing else, you could be in serious doo-doo. So, I don't necessarily think that's evidence that bear spray doesn't work. There's actually a lot of scientific literature on this that looks into that, the bear spray versus gun thing. But I mean, listen, there's a lot of folks who've been backcountry camping like you, and their whole life they've never had a single problem with a bear, right? But you just don't want to end up that statistic.
Well, you know
So
what? It only takes one time, right?
it
And
only
look,
takes one time.
it only takes one time. And yeah, looking at your can there, it looks pretty well worn. The label looks almost half worn off the damn thing. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
all right.
this was my go-to, and then I lost the little plastic safety thing, and it just can deploy at any moment now. So I'm just going to use this on the crazies here in Toronto. Save it for that.
There you go. Now we should put together a show just on this stuff, because you also had a post on your Instagram about the guy with the cougar, or the cougar attack.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and then I actually looked up and I started looking for him, because, like I say, he'd be a cool guy to have on a show. Didn't realize it happened a few years back, but there again, had he had something like a bear spray, situation could have been averted. This one lady in Thunder Bay area, or up around that area, that had her dog killed by the wolves. There again, right? So Yeah,
I was
safety in the backcountry is it's a big topic. We've covered a few things on that, and it's always a good thing to bring to light all these things.
absolutely, man. Yeah, I've actually been DMing with that lady who got attacked by the wolf pack near Kenora, who lost her dog, and I'll flip her I'll flip her contact to you. She would be a great person to talk to on the show. She said she's a little shaken up. She doesn't want to speak publicly about it right now, but
Mhm.
she said that she's convinced bear spray wouldn't have helped her in the situation because she said her dog was like 20 feet in front of her. But to
Right.
me, like, I didn't want to say, she was pretty shooken up. So I didn't say anything to her in the moment. But from the sounds of it, I still think that bear spray could have helped her because apparently, the pack ambushed her dog as they were going back into the woods from a meadow. And the dog was like 20 feet in front of her. And if she had deployed bear spray just at the entire, it was a rolling mass of wolves on her dog, something good could have come out of that, I think. But yeah, it's a fascinating topic, and I think people aren't as aware about these things for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, I got an offer here on in the chat there from Cone from the Dutch Explorer. He's got like 4 cans of bear spray, so yeah, I'll borrow one of them off you. Yeah, maybe we'll have to use them when we go on a canoe trip together sometime. So that'd be a good thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. You also share a lot of special interest stories on there too. You mentioned like you were moving up to climate zone 4, but you talk a lot about that type of thing, and you've been covering things like the different types of wolves that there are in Ontario and how they kind of there seems to be a line geographically where one one species of wolf stops and the next one starts type of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, the wolf story is very, very interesting. I listened to this guy who's basically he's a wolf biologist inside of Algonquin Park. And a lot of these biologists, unfortunately, I don't know if you've ever tried to have them on your show, but a lot of the guys who are employed by the Ministry of Natural Resources or other government institutions are very wary about publicly talking about any of these topics, because if they get political at all, they can end up possibly getting reprimanded or losing their job, right? So it's tough to get these guys to speak publicly. But basically, I just tried to regurgitate what I heard from this guy's seminar. He was doing a seminar with like the Algonquin Research Station or something like that you had to pay like, $10 to attend. But yeah, the whole coyote, eastern wolf, gray wolf is the main, tierage there. And it seems that the biologists, when they're talking about this, they actually use the Latin names because there's so many different common names, right? People use names like Algonquin wolf, which is another name for eastern wolf. They say like timber wolves, the Great Lakes wolf, the boreal wolf, which are all kind of, I guess, variations of the gray wolf. So those three are the three main buckets here in Ontario. It's pretty interesting. The eastern wolf kind of being in the Algonquin area in central Ontario, the gray wolf being in northern Ontario, basically French River and north, and then south of central Ontario in all the farm country, it's mainly coyotes. But there's a bunch of caveats to that where they bleed
Yeah.
over each other. And he was showing some really interesting maps, like showing actually tracking collars in these areas where you could actually see all three. Especially to me, the Muskoka, Georgian Bay area was one of the most interesting areas he was showing, because you could literally see any three of those. Most likely it'd be an eastern wolf, aka Algonquin, but it's pretty interesting. We got all three here because eastern wolves are pretty much wiped out in the entire continent, except for I think there's a small pocket down in North Carolina. So we're very wolf rich, or canine rich rather, here in Ontario. And then you got the coy wolves, right, which are kind of mixes between coyotes and these eastern wolves. So it's
Is that what
it's
that
fun.
is? That's a mixed breed of wolf then, eh? The coy wolf, yeah.
Yep. They'll be kind of a moderate size, right? Bigger than a coyote, but usually smaller than an eastern wolf. Eastern wolves kind of max out at 80 pounds, but gray wolves can get up to 120 pounds max. They can get bigger like that.
Yeah, and then you also like to with all of this wild Ontario news, because it does have an effect on our wilderness, and that's all this Doug Ford Greenbelt scandalous stuff that's been going on. You've been very vocal on that with a number of posts, kind of ripping Dougie a new one, as they say, right? Um, have you ever had any response from anybody in his party about that or anything, or yeah, anything like that?
Well, it's weird. I had people from the NDP and the Liberals actually reach out to me and say, "Hey, we're gonna like from their communication people say we'll feed you stories like as we're feeding them to reporters or whatever because we see
Yeah.
because I get a lot of I've got about 76,000 people on TikTok and the Dougie stuff for whatever the political stuff on TikTok just takes off in the algorithm for some reason. Like got a bunch of Dougie stories that get multiple hundreds of thousands of views. And a few even over 1 million. It's very sensitive to that on the algorithm there for whatever reason. But no one from his side. I mean, no. I wouldn't expect it, either. I'm not I am politically agnostic. I think that people who are like political hacks who just put out propaganda for one party, to me, it's very uninteresting. And because I'm trying to be somewhat objective and try to, curate the broadest audience possible in this, I never, try to shit on any one party. So if I'm criticizing Doug Ford that I think if he's doing something bad for human health, wildlife, or wilderness, I try to call him out. I try to bring attention to the issue. But as soon as you start getting partisan like that, you lose probably 50% of your audience. It's not a great idea. And to be honest, I don't think it's intellectually interesting or intellectually honest to be a partisan hack. It's just it's not good.
Yeah. No, but you know what? You're calling them out on the stuff that's not right, and you're not the only voice that's saying, "Hey, no, this shouldn't be happening," right? So you're not standing alone on that. That's for sure.
For sure, it's all stuff that's in the Toronto Star, and the Globe and Mail, and that kind of stuff. They just don't put their stuff into videos. They probably should.
Okay. How much time do you spend on a daily basis coming up with this stuff? It doesn't come without a little bit of research and background. How much time are you spending on this?
Oh goodness, I do work over to China for my my full-time job, and I usually spend. So I'm usually doing that for 7 or 8 hours a day, and pretty much all my downtime, I'm reading. I'm just obsessed with this news. Like I'm following it anyways. So I try to just do as much stuff as I can. Sometimes I'll do like a podcast one day, and that'll just suck up all my time, like editing podcasts and the audio track and all that kind of stuff. But honestly, recently, pretty much all of my spare time outside of my main job, I try to put into this. I'm reading stuff or, doing stuff related to it.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. I need to take a step back here, and this goes back to the bear spray thing. And I want to, my mind just flipped right over to something else before I was done with that. I wanted to ask the chat over there how many people actually take bear spray into the backcountry with them. So if everybody wants to participate in this here, put a number 1 if you do use bear spray, put a 0 if you don't use bear spray. I'm just curious to see what kind of numbers, and I'll even pipe in on this myself. There we go. I put my 0 because I should, but I don't. I really should. Yeah. So let's see here. Oh, we got wow. Surprisingly enough, a lot of people are bear spray carriers.
Love it.
Yeah. Have you ever had one discharged by accident on you? I guess it's not pleasant.
No, thank God. It's insanely powerful from what, I actually have. I had a one that I actually went to test it and it was faulty and it kind of dripped down and some of the stuff got on my hands. And about 5 minutes later, I went to take a swig out of my water bottle and it was on the lip, just a little bit of residue. And my tongue and mouth and nose watered like fucking crazy. It was enough to basically debilitate me for about 5 minutes just with that residue. So getting a freaking cloud in something's face, man, it's going to take you out, man. It's going to take you out. I mean, you saw in that video of that guy who got the Saskatchewan encounter that we were talking about earlier. He just did a little psh, and that bear got that and immediately turned around, started walking the opposite direction, so it's powerful.
Yeah, that's it. You know what? It's crazy. I guess when you're deploying the stuff, you need to be upwind of it. You don't want to be downwind of it. Like if you're spraying into the wind, it's like pissing in the wind, man. You're gonna get it, right? Yeah. It's surprising. I don't know if you could see the chat on your side there, James, but quite a few people do carry it. More than I expected, actually. A lot more. It's probably like 60-40, but more than I really expected.
That's great, man. That's great. I love to
Yeah.
see that. I love to see that. The first night camping out on my property, I had a black bear come right up to my hammock tent. This is also the reason that I've never used my hammock tent since, because it scared the absolute shit out of me. But had this bear walk right up to my hammock, sniffing around. I was yelling and screaming at it, and it was taking its sweet ass time. It would just stood there, kept sniffing, and then I kept yelling and screaming. And he decided, he's like, no, you know what? This stinky monkey is a little bit too crazy for me. And he just started walking away at a very leisurely pace, right? Like he couldn't give a fuck. And
Yeah.
I had my bear spray with me. It was actually had just expired the month before. I checked it as I was walking out the next day. But I don't know if you had a similar experience, Dennis, like in a hammock tent. I felt like a bear sushi roll being suspended in the air in that hammock, right? And I actually saw like on Lost Lakes, the YouTube channel, and Xander Budnick using this Norwegian hammock that's like kind of perpendicular
Oh,
to
the Amex. Yeah.
the hammock. Yeah. So
Hammock,
those
yeah.
guys using it, I'm like, that's a great tent. I haven't used it since though, because you feel so unprotected with your back out like that. Anyways, that's a side story, but I will never camp in a fucking hammock tent again after that experience, man. I felt so vulnerable, but that's just me.
Funny you say that, because I'm a hammock camper, and I refuse to sleep in a tent again unless I have to, right? Just the comfort levels, you know what the comfort levels are. But my buddy there, Daniel, on the French River, he was in a hammock when he had his bear encounter, and the bear actually ripped his hammock right over by his head open. And if you met Daniel's he's a rather large fella, and he said he screamed like a girl. When I found out about his encounter, I actually called him, because like we've canoed together, he and I called him up to make sure everything was okay. And he says, Dennis, he says, scared the shit out of me. He says, I screamed like a girl. He says, I had to get that thing away from me, eh? And yeah, it was. I felt bad for him, but yeah, hammock there again, right? That's always been my biggest worry with being a hammock camper, is not so much the bears, is maybe like a moose sauntering through the bush, and like, boom, broadsiding his side eyes, right? What are you gonna do? So.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. You just feel vulnerable because you can't protect your back, I think. And with a tent, at least you feel like you're not vulnerable in 4 dimensions. Your back is on the ground, and you feel like it's probably going to come through the entrance, so you can shoot something at it that way. That's my feeling. I get the tents though, especially if you're canoeing and you're just right on the side of the lake and there's not a lot of even ground. I get the whole argument, but I was just fucking terrified, man. I was absolutely terrified in that scenario. So
yeah. Amanda, thank you very much for becoming a channel member. Make sure you drop me your email address at canoehound@gmail.com, and we'll get you all set up to get your perks all started. So thanks very much for that. Yeah, you know what? I still won't trade in my hammock. I don't know. I'd have to have an encounter perhaps before I would actually, do that. So yeah. But you don't only cover serious stuff on the show. You cover some stuff that is rather hilarious too at times. One that I've watched, one of your posts that I've watched quite literally 100 times. So I account for like 100 of the views on this thing. And you mind if I show it on screen here?
Let's do it.
Everybody, this here, maybe other people have seen it, but not, didn't know where they seen it. So I'm just going to get this set up. Just bear with me for a moment. Window, how do I do this here? To share audio? Yes, right there. Is this going to work for me? I've had this day of real electrical gremlins, as I call them. Oh, it's a Chrome tab. There we go. And it's on. Okay, let's share this. Why is it not working? Oh, there we go. Sorry, bear with me, everybody, for a moment. This will work out, I think. Okay, for anybody that has ever seen this post, this has been a pretty popular one here for him, and you'll see why. This poor guy. Can anybody hear that? Oh no, let me turn on the volume. There we go. There goes the fish. There goes the fish.
the lure has already popped out of the fish's mouth.
Yeah, and then he goes to scoop the fish again. Poor guy.
GoPro, stop recording.
And it doesn't shut off.
GoPro, stop recording.
I don't know if anybody's ever seen this one, but I'll tell you, man, I laughed my behind off the first time I seen that, and I had to watch it over and over and over again.
It was amazing. I mean, it was so perfect, especially with the fog rolling in at the end and the GoPro not turning off. It's like, was that staged? Was that a false flag event, by some brand? I don't even know. It's so perfect,
Yeah. Evan LaFave brings up a good point here. That guy could have used the life jacket. Yeah. We're big advocates on the show here of making sure you wear your PFD out there to keep ourselves safe. But right. Yeah, you know what? First he catch what was that? A lake trout it looked like, probably? Good sized lake trout?
I forget. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. And then the hook pops out. He goes to put down his rod. He drops that in the water. The fish falls out. Just anybody out there record with a GoPro on voice command? And how many times do you have to argue with those things to shut off? Right? It's
a pain, man. I mean, some of the episodes I love the most of Ontario Outdoor Creators is when they do the survival challenges, when they don't bring any food or very little food. And when they're fishing, the stakes are so high, because they're starving and you're rooting for them. And I don't know if they edit their videos purposely, to make the catch later in the trip or not, but it's just great for building that dramatic tension. It doesn't make it pleasant for the creators, though, I'm sure. Especially when you're expending that many calories, but I think a lot of people just love the kind of ASMR tranquility aspect of it as well. Like you don't need to have that drama, tensioned up like that necessarily in every episode, that kind of thing. But it's interesting.
Yeah, and you do have quite a few comical things. So the point I'm trying to make here, though, like with the type of content that you're putting out on YouTube and Instagram, Instagram and TikTok. I'm not a TikToker, so that's you're covering all gamuts. You're covering the serious, you're covering the political, you're covering the educational, you're covering the, a little bit of everything on there, which brings a lot of flair and flavor to what you're actually presenting to people. So, and it seems to be working with the way your numbers are growing. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just had this kind of hypothesis that, I've been a vegan in my life. I've been a fisherman. I am a novice hunter, novice backcountry camper, just getting into homesteading. I've lived in China, in the United States, in Canada. I've kind of had many different, life phases. And throughout all of those different life phases, I've really cared about this stuff. So my philosophy is, I kind of, with this audience, my real objective is, yes, to build an audience, but to build an audience for conservation here in Ontario, to get as big a coalition of people that care about these things together. And my literal thought was, I want to have vegans and hunters arguing in my comment section. And I am very pleased to say that happens all the time. So that's great. Because you know what? Vegans and hunters actually have a lot in common in that they care deeply about the planet, right? It's in somewhat different trajectories, but they both, I think, deeply care above and beyond the average individual. So my hypothesis is that I could get maybe 80% of Ontarians interested in this kind of light variety of Discovery Channel like topics, but focused, purely on Ontario. So that's what I'm kind of trying to do here. And we'll see. Who knows? Maybe it'll crap out like around 50,000 people, like on Instagram. It'll just peak out there. Who knows? I think there's 16 million people here in Ontario, but going to try to grow it as big as I can.
Yeah, for sure. Now, based on what you're saying there, and the vegans and the hunters, sort of being like this, you had a post on your Instagram feed, and you probably know the one I'm going to be talking about, which is the one that had the beaver with its head crushed by the tree it was gnawing on, and you posted that, and it was like now that was something did somebody supply that video to you?
Somebody did DM me that video. Yes. Yep.
Okay. and you turned it into a post, and then you caught a lot of flack, or seems like you caught quite a bit of flack for that, and then you had a rebuttal Instagram post explaining why you did that, and some people didn't like it, and you mentioned that. Well, I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah. It was just a very graphic, video of a beaver that had skull crushed in by a tree that it was cutting. And you can't see the guts or the brains or anything, but you can tell the thing's head is pulverized. And, I share kind of basically every fourth or fifth post in my posting strategy is a wildlife shot. And I try to do one post that's kind of like, nature as mother nature. So like cute loon baby with her mom. And then half the wildlife videos I post are like kind of really gnarly rock and roll shit, like a beaver with its skull crushed in, right? Or a wolf with a like deer fawn head in its mouth. Because I think each one of those kind of speaks to a certain, psychographic out there of people who are interested in nature, right? Because like Nature is Metal is a huge Instagram page out there with millions of followers, just all those kind of gnarly, kind of videos. Then there's also things like the dodo, which is like cute puppies and cute, deer fawns. But again, because I'm trying to attract the biggest audience possible, I want to do both. And I think it's also representative, Dennis, of what nature really is, because it's both of those things. And I'm also trying to educate people, listen, like nature is not just, either one of those. It's both. It's both. And I think honestly, hunters, I can feel hunters in the comments get uncomfortable when I do post the cute picture of the deer doe with its fawn. They get uncomfortable because they're like, wait a minute, like we're shooting these animals, like we're harvesting these animals, right?
Yeah.
And then the vegans get very uncomfortable when you post the picture of, a black bear with a moose head in its mouth. But I don't want the people to leave. I just want to confront them with, the reality of what nature actually is.
There are two sides to everything, right? And you know what? It happens minute by minute in nature. You know what I mean? It's eat or be eaten type of thing, right? So it's just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. It's like walking down a portage trail or on a hiking trail and you see that garter snake with a pair of frog legs sticking out of its mouth. What do? Do you try to save the frog, or do you just let nature be nature? You know what I mean? It's one of those things where I would let nature be nature. I feel bad for the frog, right? I would hope nothing was going to eat me like that, especially from the asshole first, as you said it. But you know what I mean? It's one of those things. And no, my animal's not a garter snake or a frog either. So just for the record, right? But it happens out there. I've seen many accounts of that in the backcountry. I've seen the loon swimming around a lake in a circle, and it's got something clamped onto its leg under there, whether it's a snapping turtle or a big pike or a muskie or something. It happens daily. You know what I mean? Just locally, we got a local cemetery here in the area that has a huge pond, a reflection pond, and they've always had two of these big, beautiful white swans in swimming around, and they're mates, they're pairs, right? And wife and I go drive them by there, and she says there's only one left. Well, darn well a coyote probably got one of them, right? And it happens. It happens on a daily basis. So the fact that you cover this stuff, you know what? I always say, don't leave the content that you love, but if you don't like the post, just don't look at the post, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I got a lot of angry DMs from people saying like, how fucking dare you? Like I spat my coffee out at the fucking breakfast table, and things like that. And got a bunch of unfollows. I think the most unfollows I've ever had in like a 48-hour period. But, I think it also helps bridge the gap, because I do find there's people that are more balanced in the middle in terms of like what you just described, Dennis, can see both like the rock and roll and the mother nature elements simultaneously. I feel like for the folks that see just the mother nature part or just the rock and roll part, the muskie eating a duckling part, for example, right? I think you can also maybe categorize that as like the divine feminine connection or like the divine masculine connection in my mind. Mm-hmm. And by showing both images, I think it's also helping bridge that gap between these groups, like between the vegans and the hunters. Because listen, as a vegan, the vegan content is always the cute cow on the farm sanctuary getting its throat tickled by, the rescue farmer. And it's like, I'm sorry, guys, but if that was a wild, a wildebeest, it's going to get eaten asshole first by a pack of hyenas. Like, you're not being honest about the nature of reality. And I think it's the same thing for the flip side. A lot of times hunters can be very, not sadistic, but almost like overly focused again on the rock and roll nature, and not realize there's competition, but there's also cooperation, going in nature. So I think it can bring everybody together and realize like, oh, I get the vegan perspective. I get the hunter's perspective. This might be over intellectualizing it. Like, this might be very masturbatory, and getting too deep into it. But I think that it's true. I do think that it's true.
Yeah, right here, Mark from Open Air Outdoors says Mother Nature can be cruel, and it's not correct not to acknowledge that. I know she's kicked my behind more than a few times on canoe trips and stuff like that. She can be mean to us in other ways. And just for anybody that also might think poorly of that type of post that you put on there, they may be a fisherman or something like that. Just think of how many small fish that fish had to eat to become that big fish that you caught and you have as a trophy on your wall or something, right? So yeah, that's the way nature is, man. It's because we are quote unquote at the top of the food chain, we are for a reason, right? And enough of that. We need people to subscribe to your channel, not leave your channel, right? Yeah. So
right.
What are some of your favorite things that you like to post? So like what say for instance, what was maybe one of your favorite posts that you've done that not necessarily but because of numbers, but because of it's more you?
I love posting videos of me in water, especially cold water and kind of cool spots I find on Crown land. It's kind of like, they don't get a lot of views, but it's just showing like the joy that I experience doing that, especially like the colder the water, the higher your dopamine spike is. Like, this is Wim Hof stuff, right? The whole cold exposure thing. I'm a big, proponent of that, but it also just, I think, shows people, how much fun it can be outside there. So that's just something that immediately jumped to mind. I love doing that. I love sharing that. And you get a lot of very like deep emotional comments on those kind of posts, like, shit, man, I fucking love this page, like, or shit, man, I fucking love Ontario. You get comments like that with, those kind of posts, but they don't get big numbers.
Right. Cool. We're getting close to the 8:00 break here. I'm just going to right now, before we take our quick little break here, just posting right now the link if anybody wants to come on panel, ask James a question, or maybe share a story with him or something that he may find interesting to share on his Wild Ontario News. Please do. We'll start with taking up to 5 people. Come on, people. You want people to ask you questions, right, James?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course he does. Do you?
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Sure.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to pop on panel, ask a question, please get yourself set up here while we just take this quick little commercial break.
There's nothing like being out there. For over 50 years, we've been connecting people with nature by building classic Canadian canoe designs using the best materials available. We built a reputation on durable, dependable canoes that allow you to focus on what's important, whether that's unplugging in remote wilderness, spending quality time with your favorite people, or nailing the perfect line. Visit novacraft.com to find the perfect canoe for you and locate your nearest authorized dealer.
Tonight's episode of CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. Algonquin Outfitters, with 5 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Salis Marine, keeping you safe on the water since 1999. Ostrom Outdoors, custom fit canoe packs and barrel harnesses. And Novacraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. And welcome back to the second half of Canoe Hounds Outdoor Adventure Show with tonight's guest, James Alofs from Wild Ontario News on Instagram. Let's bring James back here again. Am I saying your last name, Alofs? Is that how it's pronounced?
You got it. I'm surprised, man. Even my bank, all my ex-wives, they can't even pronounce my name correctly. So that's impressive.
There you go. There you go. Well, hey, as long as the lawyer can't, right? That's not me.
That's right. That's
all
right.
Good stuff. Well, you know what? We got no takers down in the basement yet, but we do have a few questions that have popped up here in the throughout the chat there. If I miss any of them, I'm sorry, but we got a couple here from Evan Lefebvre, regular on the show here. He's asking, James, do you have any favorite canoe trips you've done in the past?
You know what? I think definitely I did a canoe trip into Algonquin with my 2 stepbrothers and about 4 other guys. And it was a bit of a disaster. My first and only time going to Algonquin Park, because I always do Crown Land. But it was a 2-day trip, just raining in the fall, very stormy. The 4 guys we brought with us were complete dipshits, like bitching, moaning, complaining. Oh my God, you learn so much about people on these group kind of trips. I've never done a trip with, more than 2 people generally. So, Dennis, I don't know if you've ever done like big group trips like that with 8 people, but oh my God, the dynamics there. Basically, 4 of us were kind of, I don't want to say hardcore to toot my own horn, but we were with it. We had no problems. We were enjoying the hell out of ourselves. And the other 4 guys were just dragging their ass. And it was like hell, man. But we survived, and it's one of my most memorable things. That the canoe paddle out was so stormy. If we had gone sideways in those waves, we would have got wiped out for sure. So the more suffer, the better it is, right? The better the memory, right, Dennis? But
yeah,
have you had any experiences like that with 6 or 8 people before? And having weird dynamics.
Yeah, too often. I'm more of a fan of if you're paddling with a group, maybe 2 canoes, maybe 3 max, to not push the limits of one, trying to find a campsite that's going to be suitable for everybody, because Algonquin Park, yeah, you're going to find campsites all over the place that are, suitable for larger parties. But when it comes to Crown Land camping or way out in the middle of nowhere on these places where the campsites aren't marked, it's harder to find footprints for your tents unless you and every guy wants their own sleeping quarters. Like, nobody wants to share a tent these days. Everybody's got their own thing. I'm even running into that situation now with being a hammock camper, where I've been too big of an advocate of it with my buddies that a couple of them have started investing in hammocks, and now I have to fight for the good hang spots, and there's not always good hang spots, right? So you find yourself precariously hanging over the edge of a ravine cliff or over top of a big rock or a tree stump. So yeah, but I prefer smaller groups, 2-4 people. Depends on the trip though, 100%.
Yeah, and that's really interesting with that everyone wants to go in singles. It reminds me of my friend who he got engaged 3 times, and each time he took his fiance on a week-long camping trip to see, would we get, what happens? How does she suffer in the outdoors? And each time was in the summer when the bugs were horrible. And literally, I shit you not, he called off the wedding for the first 2. Because after the week-long camping trip, he's like, if we've got 3 kids and we're having difficulty paying our mortgage and shit's hitting the fan, there's no way I can go through this with this woman. So it did work out apparently with the 3rd one after their week-long camping trip. So, and he didn't tell them that this was a screening process, before they went out on the
right.
trip. But honestly, man, after that experience with that 8-guy trip to Algonquin, it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea to screen love interests via a week-long camping trip.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't do that though, because my wife does not enjoy backcountry camping, like canoeing and stuff like that. So, but her and I we're like we're on the same level, right? We're on the same page all the time. That we understand each other, and 30, 31, 32 years of marriage now is you know. But if I had to judge that in the backcountry, which she has been on trips with me, but it's not her thing. So no, I understand what you're saying. I think the dynamics amongst guys, you get a group of guys having that dynamic because. I have been on trips where the dynamic has not been totally great for everybody in the group, right? A couple people have a bickering thing. Never with me though, because I'm always like, yeah, whatever. But some people just don't see the eye to eye out there, and when that happens, yeah, it can make for a miserable trip sometimes.
Absolutely, yeah. I was out there one time with a guy, and he didn't bring the right bug gear. It was getting eaten alive. And we got to our target lake that we were hiking into. It was about an 8-kilometer hike through bush. And he brought an entire bottle of Jack Daniels and just drank the whole thing by himself and started to get, how like people who are very, very drunk, right? They go on these monologues and can be very difficult to handle. I literally took him out swimming because I thought I could either tire him out and sober him up or just drown him. And thankfully it did sober him up somewhat, but that was an absolute clusterfuck of a situation. Somebody being wasted like that on a trip. But yeah, you learn a lot about people in the backcountry.
Yeah, we had had a chance with, not a chance, but we had a guy on our trip one year. He was totally green to the group. Like he knew one of the guys on the trip, and he wasn't much of a tripper, and nor did he know much about it. But his food consisted of a bunch of bags of Mr. Noodles. Right. And we're all telling him, like, dude, you need something more than that. Like, you're not going to survive for a week-long canoe trip, 80, 90 kilometers on Mr. Noodles alone. Right. And by day 2, he wanted out because the weather was rainy and cold, and he just was green to it. Right. We ended up paddling him to Highway 11, and he hitchhiked home. And this is up in Temagami, right? So Red Cedar Lake area. We quite literally paddled. Well, not we, my buddy that invited him paddled him to the road, and he hitchhiked home, and totally screwed up our trip. So yeah, you don't like it when that happens. That's a bad dynamic, right? So there's the trial by fire right there. Yeah.
Right. What a mess.
We got two people in the basement here waiting to ask you a question. We'll start with Tim here from Super Good Camping. Let's bring him up here. Tim, how you doing? You got no volume, Tim. Let's see. Testing 1, 2. No? Okay, I'll tell you what. We'll put you in the basement. You could log out and come back in. Just make sure you check your microphone. We'll get you up after the next guy. There we go. And, well, the next guy is somebody that I believe you follow from time to time on YouTube. We got Xander Budnick. How you doing, Xander?
Hey, how's it going, Dennis? Hey, James. How's it going, guys?
Hey, man. Doing well.
Xander, great to talk to you, man. Holy shit.
Yeah. Sorry?
Great to talk to you, man. Holy shit.
Yeah, man. Hey, well, actually, so I saw James come up on Instagram maybe like 2 months ago, and I followed him, and then James sends me a message like immediately. He's like, holy shit, Xander Budnick. I love you, man. It's just like, I showed so many people that message, like, because it was so funny and so genuine. It was like, it made my day. But I love the content, and you've been killing it. You're like filling this niche that's like, I didn't know that I needed. So it's just kind of cool, like, somebody like documenting the news of the things that I'm interested in. So, actually, so my question is, you got this land up north. You said you want to, well, I got 2 questions. You said you want to document it. Like, what's your plan for that? Are you going to do long form? I said you kind of touched on that. Actually, it's less of a question, more of a statement. I think you should do long form. And if you don't plan to do long form, what's the reason? Because I think you have a personality for it, and I think it'd be fun to, see what you do with it.
Interesting, man. Well, dude, you're the one to talk to on this, man. You're the Jedi expert. Xander's got I think around 700,000 followers on YouTube. So he's the Jedi master of long form content. That's for sure. I don't know, man. Like, I feel like I'm really good in the short snippets, and I just feel like there's maybe less competition out there if I did go, purely into the short form. But One of the thing I'm worried about the long form, man, like with your filming, like how much extra time does it take you when you're documenting an entire trip like that when you're filming? Like, does that add 5% of time? Is it 50%? Like how
No,
much
it's,
bog you
I mean,
down?
when you first start, it's going to take a lot of extra time, especially when you're trying to say something to the camera, but you're already pretty much a natural at that. So that won't be that difficult for you. It's just setting up the shot. It gets easier with time. It's a muscle you train. For me now, 10%, like instead of going 30 kilometers, I go 25 kilometers, but now that I've done it for so long, I know how to get the shots. I know when the shot is needed. So it doesn't take up extra time. When I was doing it before, I would get, 30 extra shots that I just like cut out. So it's like a muscle you train and you learn. So it's going to be a lot to undertake at the beginning. So that filming and that storytelling and that editing is going to take you a long time to begin with, but down the road, like you're going to appreciate it. And I think you're missing out on a cool opportunity because you were saying there is a lot of people that love that homesteading content, and you can do both. You can do the short form and the long form. Like you can still do the short form, but I think if you're missing, you'd be missing out if you skip the long form. That's all I'm saying. And even if you just document it and you don't post it yet, like at least you have that content that you can use later. And I think if you add your personality to it, I think you could do a good job.
Right. Interesting.
It doesn't have to be like that, like silent content, because like you got this quirky, funny humor about you, and I think that the world might like that.
There you go.
And the niche isn't full, man. Like that's what I thought coming into this. Like my brother's like, oh yeah, then the niche is full. There's like Joe Rogan at the Bears. There's all these people making canoe camping content. And then I came in 2021 and people just seem to, resonate with me. And like, I didn't expect to, hit it off, but it happened. Right. So there's always places for people to fit in, and I wouldn't, worry about it too much.
Do you find that you have a deeper connection with people to your personality because they do spend sometimes like an hour watching your journey versus 30? Do you think that's a big thing too?
Yeah, dude. I think long form content creators have a lot more they definitely, like, I mean, exactly. You already said it. Yeah. If you're just watching some TikTok, let me think of this. Somebody with, 100,000 followers on TikTok might not get the same type of like fan base that somebody with just like 1,000 followers has on YouTube, because you're only spending so much time with somebody on TikTok. It just doesn't translate as far. Whereas on YouTube, if you're spending so much time with somebody, getting to know them, getting to know their personality, you start to develop like more of a parasocial relationship. Going on my first canoe trip with John, I already knew the guy before I actually like met up with him because of all the content that I consumed. It was the same for the Bairds, same for some other guys out there. So
it becomes more intimate, right?
For sure. Yeah, exactly.
Because some people really lay their, I was mentioning that about Sean James, like I always thought that he'd be a pretty hard person to interview on this show because he lays so much of it on the line on his channel, and anybody that watches his channel already knows most of the things that I would ask him as an interviewer, right?
Right.
So, we'd be just touching on a lot of the same stuff, right? But we'd have to try and attack that in a different way so that it becomes fresher or new. But yeah, I find that, some of the YouTubers that I have had experience with meeting and stuff like that, when you do meet, I'm like, wait, Xander, you and I met at the Toronto Outdoor Adventure Show.
Yeah.
And it was like, we knew each other.
We knew each other immediately. Like, It was like, oh, hey, I haven't met you before. Like, we only met through this, and I've only watched your show, and you've watched me, but like, we already knew each other. And James, like your stuff that I've watched, like you're only doing short form, but I still feel like I know you. Oh, then again, you've messaged me like a few times, and your personality is kind of like, very like clear. You're not, you seem like a great guy. And like, I haven't met you, but like consuming your content, your personality comes out. So I don't know. Yeah, short form is working for you, but I think you'd be missing the long form opportunity.
I'm so glad you popped on here, man, because you're the Jedi master at this stuff. So I love hearing your insights on this, man. And I'm curious, what did you tell your brother when he was starting up, Maxime? Like, what advice did you give to him?
Sorry?
What advice did you give to him?
I've just been telling him for years. Max got me more into backcountry camping than anybody. I camped a bunch. I always went on adventures, but he was the one that was big into canoeing. And so I filmed our trips together, and then those kind of popped off. And then Max has all this experience. And I'm like, man, you got to film, you got to be out there, you got to be filming. And it took him about a year and a half to finally do it. But, I gave him all my old camera equipment, and, he had all the ideas. So that wasn't a problem, but just like kicking him out the door. And he's like, yeah, he's cutting it. He's doing his thing. We're all learning, but I think he's doing a great job.
And your styles are significantly different too.
Yeah. He's made it very clear that he wants to be, we're different personalities, and that's like what fits with him. So he's going to do it his way. And, people love that. And other people watch my stuff because they like that stuff. So, and they kind of cross over. Right. So,
right.
I have to ask you, Xander, how was Wabakimi?
Oh, it was amazing, man. Oh, dude, I haven't posted for 42 days now. I just checked. I'm trying to pump this video out. It's like taking forever. Fans are knocking on my door. They're like, where have you been? Like, no, it's not that bad, but it's like, yeah.
I know the feeling. I'm still awesome. Slowly working on mine. Yes, I am working on my Wabakimi trip, but
actually, I got another question for James. James, where?
Yeah,
for interrupting you. Where in China did you live? I lived in China too.
No way. Are you serious?
Yeah, I lived in Shanghai for 6 months. I lived in Guangzhou for 6 months.
No way, dude. That's fucking crazy. Oh my God. What years were you there? I was there basically 2011 to 2019. I was there during those times. Oh,
wait,
dude.
Last
Awesome.
time
That's
was 2011 for sure. That was a good year for me. And then 2015 or 16 was the last time I went. Guangzhou.
That's awesome, man. Were you backcountry camping with Chairman Mao?
No, but I went to the Great Wall in Beijing. No. Ni hui shou zhongwen ma?
Hui. Oh, dude, nice. I'm talking Chinese with Xander Budnick right now.
That's
this is just fucking crazy, man.
I don't know much anymore, but yeah, it's cool. We're in Toronto. You live in Toronto too, eh? I figured you lived up north.
No, not yet, man. Not yet. We gotta do a podcast, man. I would love to get you on the podcast.
Sure.
Be fascinated to talk to you, man, and share your story. That would be great.
Sure, man. Sounds fun. I'm down.
I'll get you connected.
Say again, Dennis?
I said I'll get you two connected.
All right. Yeah. Well. Yeah, great. Yeah. All right.
Cool, right, man. Well, thanks for popping in, Xander. I look forward to your Wabakimi trip. And one quick question for you, Xander. You were talking about filling the niches, right?
Yeah.
Do you find there's a lot less outdoorsy content right now on YouTube? I know, like me, and doing my research for the show and stuff like that, and always watching the people that I really enjoy watching. I find that it's been months since a lot of people have actually posted videos and stuff like that. So
John hasn't posted much. Jim's been posting his series. Joe's been posting his series. Or not his series. Joe's been just posting recently. John, he's been MIA because he posted his big Nipigon trip, which is doing phenomenal. I'm so happy for him. Kind of lighting a fire under my butt too. That guy's killing it. So it's kind of fun to be buddies with him because me and him challenge each other to keep wanting up, keep improving. What Alexis Outdoors, does she not do this anymore?
Not very much. No.
And then
she has posted a couple things of late, but she took a good hiatus there. But yeah, I just find that a lot of the YouTube content is getting really thin for the outdoorsy stuff. It has me watching more things outside of this community these days.
No, I haven't been very much aware of that. I just I follow a few guys that I really like, and other than that, I'm kind of on to weird niches, like watching beavers' heads get trapped in logs and stuff. I watch that stuff though. I'll binge that weird stuff, and I like the hardcore nature stuff. I used to follow some weird hardcore not weird, but pretty extreme hardcore nature stuff, and then they just start bloating it with inappropriate softcore porn. And I'm just I can't have this in my feed all the time. I just want to see the animals eating each other. But so
beautiful. So James, there is room for you in this niche for sure. 100%.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's always room. It rotates, right? You see people come in and come out. People bring their personalities in. you know, I was watching some series on some guys like who traveled to Tanzania, did some Mount Kilimanjaro thing. They have like 1.5 million subscribers, but they haven't posted in 3 years, so they're out of the niche. You know, this leaves room for other. It's just like there's constant rotation, right? So bring your personality, bring what you got, and do it your way. You know, while taking inspiration from others, but don't like copy them. You know, like the book Steal Like an Artist. You know, take things from, you know, other people that interest you, combine it into your own. It's like how we form our personalities, right? It's just like accumulation of our experiences. Just take that and just throw it at the world.
That's fantastic.
From the Jedi Master. There you go.
That's right, man. That's right. Oh, and Xander, I had one more question about, like, as you've been growing, you know, past the various 100,000, you know, levels. Have you found that you have either wanted to or needed to kind of reinvent your style in what you're doing at all, or have you stayed like pretty consistent, do you think, with what you're doing?
I think it's just like from my interest's sake. Like the type of videos I was making 2.5 years ago are probably a lot different than what I'm making now. Like it's still Xander Budnick, but I'm just like less interested in doing certain types of videos than what I'm doing now. I don't know. I love doing the longer canoe trips. I love going out with friends. I'm filming less like, yeah, it's just evolved, and it's just based on, you know, just how I feel, really. And hopefully that resonates with people. So that's it. I don't feel much of a drive to, you know, change other than, no, it's just changing. It's changing, but it's like for the better. I don't really know how to articulate it. It's like, yeah, no, I feel like less obligated to like pump stuff out every day because people are going to watch it if I haven't even been there for a month. And, you know, my sanity is kind of more important than just like, you know, numbers. So, yeah. And I'm also like, I'm going to put the stuff out that like I want to do, even though like certain people want to see me like suffering in the woods every day. I'm only going to do that like maybe once every couple months, you know, because I don't really love freezing my ass off or being super hungry. Like, it's okay. Like the hunger thing is not bad, but I can't do that every week. You know, I lose too much weight. So there's like, you know, it's a juggling act between what people want, what I want to do. And that's fine. And it's always going to kind of be like that. And my interests kind of are evolving. So that's hopefully people want to come along with me.
You're doing something right, man. 700,000. I think the first time I had you on the show, you were like approaching 100,000.
I think we're just over 600,000. Yeah, it was like the first year, man, I gained like 400,000, no, like 300,000 subs. Last 2 years, a lot slower growth, but it's like consistent views. And like, I mean, I'm making a living like doing this. So I like, it's great. It's a great life. Like, I'm very grateful. Yeah. Cool.
That's amazing.
Hey man, you're invited to join the green room if you want to. Just keep the link.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay, buddy. We'll catch you later.
See you guys.
Thanks, Xander.
Thanks, man. Man, that's awesome. Fucking awesome. I was not expecting that, man. I've watched this content for so long. So that was an absolute pleasure. Oh my God.
Yeah, so I see Tim in the basement, but you know what? I'll ask you, what kind of content, what is it you enjoy watching on YouTube? Where do you, you know, or not even just YouTube, but like who do you follow on Instagram and TikTok? What are some of your faves?
I'd say I'm pretty much 50-50 between, to me, the two niches are bushcraft camping and then homesteading. I'd say I've recently skewed more towards homesteading, but in the bushcraft and camping, you know, it's the Budnick brothers, the Baird brothers, you know, Joe Robinet, those fellows. In the homesteading, there's a wide variety. I mean, as Sean James, Kalle Floden out of Sweden, Jona Jinten. I don't know if you know who that is, but I would consider her like a homesteader in northern Sweden as well. She's huge. She's really, really big. And then Kyle's Cabin is another great guy in northern Minnesota. Yeah. Those are probably the key ones that I watch. I mean, I really find the CanCon stuff, especially with the camping, the bushcraft, is much more relatable because we can go out and do it here, right? Like watching guys in, I don't know, Russia and Germany and Czechoslovakia and stuff. It's just less. There's a bit of a less of a fire there. What about you, Dennis? What are you watching?
You know what? A lot of the same. If you watch back through my my playlist, and I'm not telling you to go back and watch all of them, but if you just look at some of the thumbnails on there, that's why I started this show, was basically to get to learn more about the people that I follow on YouTube. It was kind of the premise that I set out, like right from the very get-go of the show, that I wanted to, just get to know you. Like we're talking tonight and getting to know you, and it helps me understand the content that the people I follow put out. You know what I mean? When you can get sort of that little insider information, like Xander had mentioned, when he first met John, he felt like he knew him already because he follows him, right? Well, this is kind of my way of getting to know the people that I follow a little better, and it's worked out great for me. I've made some great contacts. I've made some fantastic friends throughout this whole thing, because as I mentioned to you in the green room before the show, back in the days when I had Hap Wilson on, I idolized the guy. I got all his books and I've done all his canoe routes and yada yada yada. And to meet the guy, I was like kind of fangirling at first, right? Just to realize that he's just you, he's just me. You know what I mean? We're all cut from the same cloth type of thing. And it's really cool to meet the like-minded people. So many people in the chat over there that I met at outdoor shows and stuff like that. It's the biggest thrill for me to meet them people and put a face to the name that's in the chat over there. It's a really a cool experience to say, hey man, thanks very much for being on the show. But yeah, nice to meet you. Like, tell me about you. Tell me about your adventures. And it's that's what I like about it. And that's why I haven't posted a lot lately, but of my adventures, it's me sharing my adventures, but it's also there for me and it's there for my grandkids. It's like my legacy, right? Or part of my legacy, for them to say, look at Grandpa used to go here and do this. So it's really a neat thing.
Right. That's awesome, man. That's amazing what you've done with this show. That's fantastic.
Thank you. It's a labor of love, really.
Yeah.
I'm like Xander, I'm not making a living doing this, that's for sure. So we got somebody in the basement here. He tried to come on here. Let's see if he has a voice right now. Tim, are you there?
Here's hoping you can hear me.
There you go. So James, let me introduce you to Tim Good. Tim has a podcast as well called Super Good Camping.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice to meet you, James.
Nice to meet you. Good. I love the handlebar mustache, man. That's fucking awesome.
It's only when it's gray that it looks awesome. It's when it was black, nobody noticed it. But now that I'm older, so I had a question. Listening to you talk about Sean James, like he's amazing. That he's doing cool stuff, building like log cabins and stuff in the backcountry. Is that what you're hoping to do with your land?
I think I'm probably going to do a hybrid. I think what I'm going to do is probably going to be closer to Kyle's Cabin, if you're familiar with that channel, which is more of a hybrid. I would say, he does use conventional building methods. He does use, old school hand tool stuff as well. But I'm kind of a cityite, you know what I mean? I'm not maestro level Sean James carpenter like that. So I'm probably going to make a lot of mistakes. I think the majority of humans, though, are probably in the same boat in terms of they're kind of learning from square one. So probably a hybrid, because I need to learn how to hunt too. That's another thing, a big part of this that I want to get into. And the hunting and the gathering part as well. I'm a novice. I just got my license, got my gun license, got my hunting license. So, that whole part of the lifestyle. What are you familiar with Kyle's Cabin? Have you seen that before?
A little bit. 8,000 channels that I want to watch all the time. I watch some of them, right?
Right. Yeah. Have you done any homesteading stuff before?
No, I'm a pansy bedwetter. I get out for a couple of weeks a year. That's kind of my deal. But I talk about stuff. So I don't do it as much as I'd like to.
Got it.
We got to change that, Tim. We really do.
I know. I hear you, brother.
Yeah.
So I think. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, James. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask both of you gentlemen, I think that this might skew towards a male fantasy, but I think the whole off-grid homestead thing, it's definitely a dream that a lot of guys have probably had. It's like, I don't necessarily think that everyone has it to the extent they'll actually go and do it. But to me, I'm like, you know what? I'm not married right now. I might as well go try this. I might hate it, but I might fucking love it too. You know, does that make sense to both you gentlemen, or would you guys like never ever have done or would do something like that?
Me personally, absolutely. I wake up more mornings than not thinking about an off-grid cabin, you know, the solar panels, building the things, doing the stuff. I would give a body part to have that opportunity.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
In my case, you know, it's one of these things where I'm happy living vicariously through guys like Sean James and Kyle's Cabin and the many others out there that do things that are similar to that. I get to go play. I got a day camp locally that I go out to occasionally and play with the lean-to and the fires and the chopping wood and trees and stuff like that. But would I like to do it long term? Well, you know what? I'm probably on the same boat as you, James. I'd like to go out there and maybe not live totally self-reliant off the land. I still like my amenities, right? I still like my conveniences, but I wouldn't mind taking on a simpler lifestyle that doesn't cost so much and doesn't have the government down your shorts so much, right? So that's how I would look at it. But it's so cool to watch guys like Sean James and Kyle and what's the other one there? Geez, they're up in Sault Ste. Marie, something Homestead, Wilder Homestead. They live like right off the land, right? And it's so cool. But am I cut out for that? No. Is my family cut out for that? Definitely not. Right. So yeah, it's a lifestyle.
Right. Yeah, it definitely is. And I guess, you know, because if you already have a family and a partner, that's a whole other, you know, variable in the dimension as well, you know, going and doing something like this. But, you know, we're definitely blessed here in Ontario. There aren't many places on planet Earth that you can really do this kind of thing, to be honest, you know, and actually have plentiful wild game and clean water and, you know, transparent legal systems where you don't have to worry about weird stuff with your property rights and all that kind of stuff. You know, I think we're pretty blessed. You know, you think about the majority of people in Canada, you know, their ancestry is from the British Isles or close to a majority. There's no like big predatory animals in the British Isles. You know, there's no wolves, there's no bears, there's not even any Eurasian lynx. So what we have here in Ontario, it's like, it's pretty special. It's very special. And I feel like a lot of people in Ontario don't, when you're born here and you grow up here, you just kind of take it for granted. I'm not sure if you gentlemen kind of feel that, but you know, like on terrible, right? I'm like, what are you guys talking about? What do you mean on terrible? This place is amazing.
Well, that's the Doug Ford version. But as far as being outside and doing all the wonderful things and having that opportunity for such a small population for such a large area, as you mentioned earlier, you know, bigger than France and stuff like that. We should be so thankful. But I also think that that's part of why we have such an amazing outdoor adventure community here, because there's so much opportunity to do that it's dead easy to just get out there. It's not point a camera, it's not that simple, it's not all of those things, but there's so much opportunity to do that because there's so much space, because we can all not trip over each other doing those things, and we can and it's cool, you know, to get out camping. Like, I live in Toronto, same as you, 2.5 hours from here, boom, you're in the middle of nowhere, right? It's not that difficult to do. If you're in Ottawa, it's an hour and a half to get to, right? It's that kind of deal. I don't know. I'm obviously a biased opinion. I think it's the best place in the world to avail yourself of those things.
I'm envious. You guys live so far north compared to me. James, I want to talk to you a bit too about your podcasts there and the things that you've been doing there. But you know, if you get the opportunity, check out Super Good Camping. Their podcasts are short, sweet, to the point, and you know what? They're good, quick, easy listens. A lot like your Instagram posts are. So, yeah,
I will definitely check that out. And Tim sounds like a righteous dude, and I'm a fan of any guy with a handlebar mustache in the year 2023.
Let's have a chat, James. We'll yak at some point, dude.
Yes, please, man. That's awesome.
All right.
You know where the hangout there is, Tim. So we'll see you down
senor.
there.
All right.
Okay, buddy. Thanks much. Yeah. So tell us. Oh, first off, I gotta ask. What define define Sidiot?
Idiot. Oh man. You've heard that before though, right?
I have heard it before, but yeah, for those that might not know what it is,
Yeah, city idiot, like an idiot from the city. I've got it. Most of my cousins live in the country, so I learned that term early on in life. Cityots, especially people from the city going camping or that have cottages up north, and they end up doing very stupid things. So I remember there was a guy. I got my electric car stuck on a snowmobile trail in February, and somewhere I absolutely should not have been driving in any kind of vehicle, let alone a two-wheel drive electric car. And this guy pulls up on a snowmobile, and he's got like 3 open beer cans on his sled. And he just looks at me, and the first thing he asks me is, "Where are you from?" And I say, "Oh fuck." I'm like, I know where this is going. And I'm like, "Toronto." And then he starts shaking his head. He's going, "You fucking idiot." He's like, "Why the fuck would you bring your car back here on this snowmobile trail in the middle of winter? You are absolutely insane." But anyways, I ended up making friends with this guy, and he helped me get my car unstuck. But yeah, idiots, man. What can you do? It's just a term of endearment. I think if you're a city folk and you can say that to a country folk in Ontario, it helps bridge the cultural gap.
Yeah. That's cool. Now, really quick too, the property that you're picking up, like, do you have experience with long term being out in the outdoors in, like, say for instance, like June, July? You know the mosquitoes are going to pick you up, carry you around, right?
Oh yeah, man. The mosquitoes are thick at that time. I mean, I actually love going camping at that time. I find that with a bug net, a simple like Coughlin's, $15 bug net, and you have gloves on, man, suit of armor. Like, you can be out there and people bitch and complain about it, but if you have that right Coughlin's, bug net on, it's beautiful out there, man. But I grew up with a family cottage up kind of near Perry Sound, and we were up there in the summer all the time. So it's different being at it, a human structure like that. But I know the bugs are pretty bad for a few months of the year, for sure, man. I think it's part of the journey. It's part of the journey. Spring and fall are probably the key times. Are the key times. I think for the critters too.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So moving on now to your podcast. Tell the viewers about the podcast. You're not really deep into it yet, are you? You've got what, maybe 6 or 7 episodes?
Correct. Yeah, I just published the 7th episode today. So today's actually day 30 of the podcast. So we try to keep it around an hour. I don't know how big I don't think the podcast will probably ever be as big as the short form videos. Like with the short form videos, I've got about 5.5 million views over the past 30 days between TikTok and Instagram. I don't know if the podcast will ever be as big, but I think for people that do like to take a deep dive on an issue, like the episode I posted today is about Lake Simcoe. It's like the state of everything you need to know about Lake Simcoe, what's going on there. For certain people, it allows them to go deep. And also, almost more importantly, is it allows me to talk to experts and accrue a huge amount of knowledge, which I can then disseminate into a lot of my short form videos. So I'm going to keep doing it regardless of what the numbers are. We have almost 3,000 downloads in the first 30 days. So it's not bad. But I think I'm going to keep doing them, man. I like doing them. It
will grow. It'll grow as as you go along, and you have a couple of great platforms to actually be able to help that grow, being the TikTok and the Instagram. I know I try to meld all of them into focusing and channeling things into Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show. So that's pretty cool. What can you tell us? Like, who have you hosted in your previous 6 episodes?
Yeah, the first episode was this lady named Heather Drudge, who her farm was actually in the Greenbelt, and it kind of got taken up out of the Greenbelt by Doug Ford in some of the shenanigans that he was involved with. Funnily enough, actually, I don't know if you guys have heard of this story, but there was this developer named Shakir Rahmatullah who literally went on a rub and tug mission to Las Vegas with the Minister of Business and the Doug Ford's chief advisor on housing and Doug Ford's chief advisor. They literally went to the Wynn Resort in Las Vegas, and they got like full body oil massages together there. And after this trip, Doug Ford issues, this ministerial zoning order that rezoned the Drudge family farm, which this guy had just bought. And the Drudge family farm went up in valuation by about $300 million after he did this. So anyways, it's a bit of a crazy story, but I talked to her and heard her entire perspective on it. They're kind of kicking them off the land about 10 years early. They were supposed to have a leaseback agreement where they could continue farming for 10 years. But basically the guy found some legal, clause to try to kick them off early. So they're getting kicked off at the end of this year, unfortunately, of the land. I guess, the one I published today was with this lady who runs Rescue Lake Simcoe Coalition. And she's very aware of all, the phosphorus levels and how all the different fish species are doing in the lake and what the politicians are saying and what's going on with this Holland Marsh Highway that Doug Ford wants to, put through the Holland Marsh. That's really going to affect, potentially the water quality in Lake Simcoe. And then I had the bear attack guy from Saskatchewan. Yeah. And we talked about, his whole experience. And I'll just give you one more example. Maybe my buddy, Adam Russo, who's an amazing Ontarian. He's a folk musician, amazing music. And he was a big inspiration for me. There was a guy named Matt Steeves who did a documentary about this guy. He did the off-grid homestead thing near Whitney, Ontario, which I guess is in the Haliburton Highlands. And he bought 30 acres and built this killer 10 by 22 foot cabin with additions on it. And he was a huge inspiration for me because I knew him and I was talking to him via phone. Unlike Sean James, Sean James is like a giant celebrity, and it's very difficult, I think, to contact Sean James. Not just anyone will, he'll talk to, but he gave me a lot of the nuts and the bolts. What's funny is he moved out to that property with his girlfriend, and him and his girlfriend built the cabin over about a 10-month period. And then as soon as they were done, they broke up and she left. And I joked to him, I'm like, buddy, you had essentially free slave labor for 10 months and then you got a free cabin out of it. That's pretty incredible. Like, I'm pretty sure she could have sued him for like 50% ownership of that thing if they were common law partners or something, right? I'm not familiar with the legalese, but yeah. So that's the kind of, I want to do a melange of people. And I've recently talked to a wildlife biologist on there about turtles of all things. So I'm excited to share that one as well.
Yeah. So the stuff that's why I enjoy following you is like being an outdoorsy person. Not even put myself in like just like the canoeing genre or whatever, but as an outdoors person, I find it very interesting, all the topics that you do cover, because it all does relate to the things that many of us do. You know what I mean? A couple of years ago, we covered the something else you might want to look into or see what's going on with that. But a few years ago, I think it was back around season 2 or 3, we did a show on the Ontario Parks new fee structuring system for backcountry camping in parks like the Massasauga and the Temagami cluster of parks and a couple of others, and how they were like, trying to railroad these new fees, but on a 2-year trial basis. Well, you know what? The trial basis has never stopped, and I've not heard any reports as to what their findings were and how effective it is, right? But they're charging you the same thing to camp in the backcountry that they do in the front country at provincial parks with all the amenities and stuff, right? So, all these things, if they're not brought to light and people don't know the facts and they don't know what's going on, then they're just going to keep ramming this stuff right down our throats, right? So people like you bringing awareness to this stuff, whether it's the Greenbelt issues or like, in this case, Lake Simcoe issues, that's the only we as outdoorsy people are going to know about this, and thereby saving what we enjoy most. And that's the backcountry or nature, right? So.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. That's a very important point. Like these kind of issues, you need to get a coalition of people aware of these things, and then, to take some kind of action. Because if you do press the right levers, you can have action taken. But a lot of the problem is that sometimes there's not that coalition, that organization that can muster, the people in Ontario to do so. Or it might be a niche organization. Like, for example, Enviro Defense is a great organization that does a lot of, conservation related stuff, but they're very much like the tree hugger hippie type, which is totally fine. But it's a relatively small number of people kind of in that group, right? So issues where you need kind of a broader base of people, you folks like you and I need to try to do that.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, you touch on a little more of the political than I tend to on this show, but sometimes there is a calling for it where it has to happen, and awareness needs to be brought out. So I commend you on doing that. Please don't stop. Please continue with that in whatever social media format that you choose to do it on. It's needed. There is a niche for it, and keep it up.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, good sir. It's greatly appreciated.
Well, you know what?
Really appreciate
It's been a fantastic night. Thanks. Great to get to know you. I'm sure we will probably meet up one day, maybe tip a beer or two with our clothes on. And we'll let people figure that one out. But yeah, by all means, thanks for that great promo on Instagram. That was funny as heck. A lot of people got a good kick out of that. But yeah, no Viagra was shared. And we did the podcast with our clothes on. So that's a good thing. I am 59 years old, you know. I got that 59-year-old body too. So, James,
that's hilarious.
Where can everybody find your socials? What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show, Dennis. And it's Wild Ontario News on TikTok, and Wild Ontario on TikTok, Wild Ontario News on Instagram, and then on the podcasting platforms and YouTube, it's Wild Ontario Podcast. You can find it there for that. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me on, Dennis. I mean, you make great content. This show format is great. I watched some of the earlier episodes, and like I said in my post about us taking Viagra and getting naked together, you've had so many literally heroes, guys that I look up to so much, on your show. You've just got an amazing guest list. So it's an honor to be here and talking to you, good sir.
Keep doing what you're doing, and you'll be meeting the same people I'm meeting. So this is it's a good thing. It's a great community. We really are a part of the same community, and all the people that watch the show and listen to your stuff. You know what? We're all part of the same community, and we all share the same love of the outdoors. So thanks very much, man. Appreciate you spending your Tuesday night with us, and we'll see you shortly in the green room.
Yes, sir.
Carry an axe. Or bear spray. Thanks, James. All right. Hopefully everybody enjoyed tonight's show. You know what? By all means, check out what James has to offer there. All his links are in the description of the video below. So if you want to check out his Instagram channel, TikTok, and his channel here on YouTube, or his podcast even, by all means do so. You know what? Feel free to support what he's doing, because he is doing some really cool things. Just really quickly want to touch on a couple of things before we do close out the show for the evening. Don't forget, next week's show, we will be having a few panelists on. We'll be talking about storing your camping gear, proper ways to store your camping gear for the winter season, and maybe how to prepare your winter camping stuff for the winter season, or for the shoulder seasons here. I know a lot of people are getting out right now and doing some nice fall hot tenting, which is something that I wouldn't mind doing here if possible. So we'll see what happens there. Also, I mentioned at the top of the show there that this coming weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I will be in Barrie, Ontario at the, what's the name of the place? The Bradford Greenhouses for the Great Canadian Outdoor Show. It's going to be one of the first shows, or I guess last shows of the season here, if you want to count it as being in 2023 leading up to 2024. But I believe it's $7 admission for the show. It's like a fishing, hunting, outdoorsy type of show. Quite a few vendors. They're going to have presenters on both Saturday and Sunday. So by all means, if you want to come out, I will be found, or you could probably track me down through the Kid Products booth. I'll be there as an ambassador and talking to many great people that come on out to the show. So hopefully we can see you out there. If you do stop by, make sure you ask me for a sticker, Canoehound Adventures or Canoehound's Outdoor Adventure Show water bottle sticker. Be happy to throw one of them your way. And yeah, that's about it. So if you haven't already done so, and you're new to the show and you enjoyed it, please hit that subscribe button. And to all of you who may not have done it yet, please hit the thumbs up. Hitting the thumbs up on a show that you may be enjoying help us immensely with the YouTube algorithm. So It's a great way to help the channel grow just by hitting a button on there. That doesn't cost you a darn thing. So if you enjoyed the show, please do so. Anyways, we'll see you next week, everyone. Have a great week. And remember, please keep the adventures alive.